Welcome to Drama Doc, where stories arrive and drama unloads. Let's begin. My fiancé cheated on me with my father. Me, 27 male. Fiancé, 26 female, call her L. My father, 52 male, call him B. My mother, 50 female, call her R. Like many who've had something like this happen, I never thought something like this would happen to me, but here we are. I've never used Reddit, but I've seen stories from here on TikTok, so I thought I'd give this a shot for any advice you all could give me. From listening to some other stories, you all like backstory, I'll try and be as clear and precise as I can. But it's only been a week, so if I start to lose it during the telling of this, I'm sorry. Elle and I met in her freshman year of college. We were both dorm in the same building where we eventually met. We later found out we lived 2 towns away from each other, so whenever we went home, I let her drive with me. It was only added like 20 minutes, so it was no big deal. After multiple trips and hanging out at school, we started to date. I have a close-knit family, as did she. So we told our families right away I had met hers plenty of times when dropping her off. But it was nothing more than an introduction and exchanging pleasantries. Both of our families accepted each other with open arms, and our relationship grew. I was a year ahead of her, so when I graduated, I went home where I was offered a good job with great pay. I visited her at school whenever I got the chance, and whenever she came home, we would make time for each other. After she graduated, she moved in with me as both of our jobs were in the city near where we grew up. Like me, she was offered a position at the company she works at now with great pay. After living together for about 3 years, I proposed, and we have been planning our wedding since. Now on to the part you're all reading for. Looking back, there was plenty of things I overlooked that I just wrote off thinking my father was just trying to welcome my ex into our family. Things like my father calling her all the time, and if I was around, they would just tell me they were talking about the upcoming family party or something along those lines. One time, Elle was in the shower and her phone rang. I seen it was my dad, so I answered when he realized it was me. He sounded both upset and surprised that I picked up. I then asked, "What's up?" He responded that he wanted to talk to Elle about my mother's birthday. That was in a week, and after a minute, we ended the call. Even typing this out now, I feel like an idiot for not seeing it sooner. On the day I found out, it was like any other day. Elle had Thursdays off, so she made breakfast for both of us. When I set out for work, she gave me a kiss and told me to have a great day. During my drive to work, I realized I had forgotten some paperwork I would need for a meeting I had at 3 p.m. I shrugged it off and told myself I would just go home at lunch to get it. Elle texted me throughout the day, talking about all the casual stuff a couple talks about, like, "What do you want for dinner? I did the laundry, do you want me to hang it up for you, blah blah blah." I didn't think it necessary to text her I was coming home for lunch, so when it came around, I just left work and went home. When I got home, I noticed a car that looked like my father's in our parking lot, but I didn't think anything of it and just parked and went into our building. When I opened the door, I was met with a scene out off a movie where a man comes home early and catches his spouse cheating, such a cliché. There was a trail of clothes, both his and hers, leading to my bedroom, and the sound of faint moans echoed through my apartment. I stood at the door in utter shock. My brain was a mix of rage, sadness, and disgust. But if you were a fly on my wall, you would see what looked like a statue I just couldn't move. When I finally snapped to, not knowing how much time had passed, I took out my phone to record. I picked up all the clothes that were on the floor and threw them into the hall of the building. After I filmed the walk to my bedroom, the door was open. I stood in the doorway, filming for about a minute, then flipped on the lights. They both jumped at the sudden light and looked at me, and to my utter shock, it was my father in the bed with her. After the initial stun, my father noticed I was recording and started to panic, trying to find anything to cover himself and telling me to stop recording. He found a towel and wrapped it around himself and started to walk toward me. I told him, "If you don't want to get hurt, stop coming to me." He either didn't care or didn't hear me and reached for my phone. I hit him square on the jaw. His head bounced off the door and slumped to the ground. Elle shrieked. I aimed the camera at Elle and said, "Concerned about your F-buddy, but nothing to say to your fiancé?" My father woke up after about a minute nap, and I told them I just needed to come pick something up for work. So I'm heading back now. If either of you pieces of shit are here when I get back, I'll send this video to everyone you know. I ended the video, looked at my dad, who was still coming to, and said, "You're dead to me. You're no longer my father, but you might want to go home and talk to Mom, because I'll be talking to her very soon." I sat in my car for a while until one of the bosses at work called to ask where I was. I told her I was on my way back right now. When I got to her office to hand her the paperwork, I must have looked awful because she started asking what was wrong with me. I told her it was nothing and I'd be okay. I could see her scanning me up and down, and she noticed some blood on my collar and stood up, rushed to me and said, "You're bleeding." I looked down and said it was my father's. She looked confused, so I pulled out my phone and showed her the video. She watched it in its entirety. She was introduced to Elle a few times, but never my father. She sat there silent for a moment until it finally clicked that my fiancée was cheating on me. But not only was she cheating, it was with my father. She asked if there was anything she could do, suggesting I take some time off. But I told her I can't go back there right now, that I just need a minute, and I'd be fine for the meeting, and I have another shirt in my office. The meeting went over fine. I put on a smile for everyone like nothing had happened. My boss came up to me after the meeting and asked how I could do that, but I just said I don't know and went to my office. I then came home, and I was alone for the first time in a very long time. Thank you for listening. I'm sorry I carried on so much, but it was therapeutic getting everything down. I just don't know what to do. I defiantly need to get the hell out of this apartment. I just can't live here anymore, and there's no possible way I'm sleeping in that bed. I know not only do I have to go get checked out, for STDs, but I think I broke something in my hand. Part 2. Hello, everyone. I honestly did not expect to come back to Reddit and see this much support on my last post. When I wrote the original story, I did not plan on updating at all. I just wanted to get everything off my chest and maybe get some advice from people who were not directly involved. After I finished writing and hit post, I closed my laptop and just sat there for a while. Then everything really started to sink in. Writing the story out had been almost therapeutic in the moment, but once it was posted and I stepped away from it, the reality of everything hit me like a train. To the people who think the story is fake, I honestly wish that were true. If I had this kind of imagination, I would probably be writing novels instead of working a regular 9-to-5 job. When I logged back into Reddit and saw the number of comments and messages, it was honestly overwhelming. I tried reading through as many as I could, but there were simply too many to reply to everyone individually. Just know that I really do appreciate the support and the advice, both positive and negative. A lot of you gave me things to think about. The day after I made my first post, I decided I needed to talk to my mother. I tried calling her several times, but none of my calls were going through. At first, I thought maybe her phone was off or she was busy. But after about a dozen attempts, I started to realize something was probably wrong. I wanted to meet her in person, maybe get lunch somewhere neutral, and tell her everything that had happened. She deserved to know the truth about what her husband had done. Even though I knew the conversation was going to be painful, keeping it from her felt worse. Eventually, I decided the best thing to do was just drive to her house. During the drive, I kept going over the conversation in my head. I tried to think of the best way to tell her. There really is no easy way to say something like that. How do you even begin a sentence like, "Mom, your husband has been sleeping with my fiancée"? The more I thought about it, the worse my anxiety got. At one point, I actually had to pull over on the side of the road because I felt like I was going to be sick. I sat there for a few minutes, trying to calm myself down before continuing. A few miles later, it happened again, and I had to pull over a second time. It is not every day that you have to drive somewhere to tell your own mother that her husband has been sleeping with the person you are about to marry. Eventually, I made it to her house. I pulled into the driveway and just sat there in my car for a few minutes, trying to gather my thoughts and steady my breathing. I kept telling myself that I just needed to get through the conversation and tell her the truth. While I was sitting there, the front door suddenly flew open. My mother stepped outside and looked directly at me. I got out of the car, expecting that maybe she was worried about me or confused about why I was there. Instead, she immediately started yelling. She demanded to know how I had the nerve to show up at her house after what I had done to my father. She said that my father had told her everything. According to him, Elle and I had gotten into a fight, and when he tried to break it up, I attacked him. She called me an abuser. She told me I had completely lost control and that she was ashamed of me. She even said that I needed to leave immediately because Elle was not ready to forgive me yet, and if she were smart, she never would. Hearing my own mother say those things to me felt unreal. For a moment, I honestly could not believe what I was hearing. Apparently, my father had taken Elle straight to my parents' house after everything happened. Together, they had told my mother a completely fabricated story about me attacking him. My mom kept going on, repeating what they had told her and accusing me of things that never happened. She barely gave me a chance to speak. Eventually, I snapped. I told her, "Really, Mom? Because your husband has been sleeping with my fiancé. That is why I hit him." I told her that if she did not believe me, I had proof. I pulled out my phone and told her I had a video of what actually happened. Then I said something I probably would not have said if I had been calmer. I told her that if she was willing to believe that story about me without even hearing my side, then she clearly did not think very highly of me. I told her not to expect me to come back looking for an apology later. The moment those words left my mouth, her expression changed completely. Her face dropped in the exact same way mine had when I first walked into my apartment and saw what they were doing. I sent her the video on the spot. She pulled out her own phone and opened it immediately. I stood there while she started watching. She made it to the moment right before the lights came on in the bedroom. Then she stopped the video. She slowly lowered her phone and looked up at me. I could see the realization setting in, but at that point I was too angry and too hurt to stay any longer. I turned around, got back into my car, and started the engine. As I backed out of the driveway, I glanced over and saw her standing there in tears. Part of me felt terrible for her in that moment. She had just discovered that both her husband and her future daughter-in-law had betrayed her. But the things she had said to me before hearing the truth were still echoing in my head. I just could not bring myself to stop and go back. When I got home, I decided the best thing I could do was start removing anything from the apartment that reminded me of Elle or my parents. I started packing up all of Elle's belongings, clothes, personal items, small things she had scattered around the apartment. Every item felt like a reminder of what had happened. I placed all of her things in boxes and stacked them next to the front door. Legally, I could not actually kick her out since she had been living there, even though her name was not on the lease. But I figured that if everything was packed and ready, it would make things simpler whenever she came to pick it up. Anything that reminded me of my parents also went into boxes. Photos, gifts, old family items. My family and I had always been extremely close growing up, but I have never had much tolerance for toxic behavior. Right now, I needed distance from all of it. I also sent a message to Elle's parents. I told them that the engagement was officially over and that their daughter had been cheating on me. I thanked them for the kindness they had shown me over the years, because they really had been supportive during our relationship. Then I asked if they would come pick up her belongings. So far, I have not heard back from them. I am hoping they respond soon and come collect everything. The last thing I want is for Elle to have any reason to come back to the apartment. Right now, I just need space to figure out what my life looks like from here. Part 3. It has been about a month since I caught my fiancée cheating with my father. And, honestly, things still feel unreal. Some days I wake up and forget about everything for a few seconds. Then, it all comes rushing back. The anger, the betrayal, the feeling that my entire life collapsed overnight. Emotionally, I feel like I am on a roller coaster. One moment I am completely numb, and the next I am filled with rage. I wish I could say I have had a happy moment since everything happened, but that would be a lie. Other than a few friends, I really do not have many people around me right now, especially after finding out what my own family was capable of. A lot has happened since my last update. It has been about a month, and I figured it was time to explain what has been going on. After my last post, I decided I needed to start taking care of the things that had been pushed aside during the chaos. The first thing I did was call my doctor. I told them I needed to get tested and asked for a referral to a therapist. I had my first therapy appointment about 2 weeks ago, and we decided to continue meeting once a week. I also went in for testing last week. The results will take a little longer to come back, so for now, I'm just waiting and hoping for the best. Around the same time, I reached out to a friend of mine who works in real estate. I told him I needed to get out of my apartment as soon as possible. Being there was unbearable after what happened. He sent me a long list of places to look at. After going through them, I decided on a small refurbished cabin just outside the city. I finished moving in 2 days ago. The place is quiet. Almost too quiet sometimes. It sits on the edge of a wooded area, far enough away from the city that you can barely hear traffic. At night, it gets so silent that every small sound outside stands out. But honestly, the quiet has been good for me. When I finished moving everything in, I decided to call Elle's parents. I told them that I had moved out of the apartment and that Elle still had not picked up any of her belongings. I explained that the landlord would be showing the apartment soon, so someone needed to collect her things before they were thrown out. Apparently that message lit a fire under them. The very next day, my former landlord texted me and thanked me for getting the apartment cleared out. So, at least that situation has been handled. One of the reasons I chose this place was privacy. Right now, only the friend who helped me find the cabin knows where I live. That means Elle cannot show up here, and neither can my parents. The only downside is the commute. At my old apartment, work was about a 10-minute walk away. Now it is a 45-minute drive each way. But honestly, the distance is worth it. Over the past month, my phone has been blowing up with calls and messages. Elle has tried contacting me. My parents have tried contacting me. Even some of my friends have been reaching out. For now, I have ignored almost all of it. The only person I really talk to about any of this is my therapist. At work, I have mostly kept to myself. I show up, do my job, and leave. On the rare occasions when I have to interact with people, I just put on a fake smile and act like everything is fine. My boss has tried checking in on me more often since everything happened. She has been genuinely supportive. But even with her, I usually just say that I appreciate the concern and that I will be okay. The truth is, I do not know if I will be okay. People always say that time heals things, but that advice usually applies when you are dealing with one problem at a time, not when you lose the 3 people you thought were closest to you in the same moment. My father, my fiancée, and in many ways, my mother too. Sometimes it feels like a huge part of who I was just died that day. The therapy sessions have been helpful though, at least I think they have. I have never done therapy before, so I do not really have anything to compare it to, but my therapist seems genuine and she actually listens. The first session was mostly just introductions. We talked about why I was there and what had happened. The second session went deeper. She asked about my relationship with my parents growing up. Before all of this, I would have described my childhood as great. My parents were supportive, we talked often, and we always tried to work through problems when they came up. Now all of that feels meaningless. She asked why I cut my mother out of my life after the confrontation. I told her that the things she said to me that day were things I would not say to someone I truly hated. Hearing those words from my own mother changed something in me. I told my therapist that I do not know if a relationship with my mother can ever go back to what it was. At the end of our last session, I actually gave her the link to my posts here. For some reason, writing everything out feels easier than saying it out loud. Sometimes typing the words helps me understand what I am feeling better than speaking does. So if you happen to be reading this, hello, Doc. For now, though, life is still pretty rough. I thought that by this point I would at least feel stable. Not necessarily happy, but maybe a little more normal. Instead, I mostly just feel exhausted. Part of that is probably my own fault. I know I should respond to my friends more often, but every time I think about replying to their messages, it just feels overwhelming. I know they mean well. I know they want to see me and check in, but the idea of socializing or explaining everything again just drains what little energy I have left. So for now, my routine is simple. I go to work, I go to therapy, and when I come home, I sit on the back deck of this cabin and stare out at the trees. Sometimes I pour myself a cheap glass of whiskey and just watch the sunset behind the woods. It is peaceful out here. Peaceful in a way that feels strange after everything that has happened. I have not gone hunting since high school, but being out here has made me think about picking it up again. There is enough land around the cabin that I could probably hunt right from the back porch. Maybe getting back into something I used to enjoy will help clear my head a little. For now, though, I am just taking things one day at a time and trying to figure out what the rest of my life is supposed to look like. Because after everything that happened, I honestly still have no idea what comes next. Final update. It has been a while since my last update, and I know some of you were wondering what happened to me. So first, I want to say this. I am still here. I know I disappeared for a bit, and I am sorry about that. The truth is that after my last post, I was nowhere near okay. I needed time to step away from everything and focus on putting my life back together. For a while, I isolated myself. I stopped checking messages and stopped reading comments. I just needed space to process everything that had happened. But I want you all to know something important. Every comment and message that people left did not go unnoticed. When I eventually came back and read through them, I realized how many strangers had taken the time to support me and offer advice. Honestly, that meant more than I can properly explain. When I was at the lowest point in my life, the people who helped me the most were complete strangers on the internet. So before I say anything else, I want to say thank you. Truly. In my last update, I mentioned that I had started taking steps to rebuild my life. I had scheduled medical tests, started therapy, and moved away from the apartment where everything happened. I am happy to say that at least one piece of good news came out of all of this. My test results came back, and everything was clear. I cannot even describe the relief I felt when I got that phone call. After everything that happened, the last thing I wanted was another problem added on top of it all. As for my new place, I have finally settled in. When I first described it in my last post, I called it a refurbished cabin. Looking back, that might have been a little generous. Technically, it was refurbished, but that was about 25 or 30 years ago. So when I moved in, the place was definitely a bit outdated. But with all the free time I suddenly had, I decided to start fixing it up properly. Over the past couple of months, I have slowly been renovating the place. Painting walls, replacing old fixtures, repairing cabinets, and just generally trying to make it feel like a real home. At this point, the only thing left is painting the spare bedroom that I turned into a small office. The only work I did not attempt myself was the electrical and plumbing. I have absolutely no experience with either of those things, and I had zero interest in electrocuting myself or dealing with pipes that I did not fully understand. Surprisingly, doing all this work on the cabin has been incredibly therapeutic. There is something calming about focusing on a simple task and seeing physical progress at the end of the day. It helped clear my mind in a way that sitting around and thinking never could. I am also still seeing my therapist once a week. To everyone who suggested therapy in the comments, I honestly think that advice might have saved me. Being able to vent, talk through my emotions, and get guidance from someone who is completely neutral has helped more than anything else. Slowly, things have started to feel a little more stable. I am still working at the same company. I have also started opening up a little more to a few co-workers I trust, including my boss, who some of you might remember from my earlier posts. Following my therapist's advice, I have also started reconnecting with some of my friends. At first, it felt exhausting, but little by little, I have been reintegrating into my old social circle. It has not been easy, but it has helped. Now that you are caught up on my life, I should probably talk about the situation with my family and my ex. About a month ago, I decided I was ready to speak with my mother again. Up until that point, I had her blocked on my phone. But eventually, I realized that avoiding the situation forever would not help anyone. So I unblocked her and gave her a call. She answered almost immediately. From the tone of her voice, I could tell she was panicking at first. I think she was not even sure if it was really me calling. Once I reassured her that it was actually me, I told her that we should meet in person and talk. She agreed right away. The next day, we met at a small diner near her house. When I arrived, she was already sitting inside waiting. The moment she saw me walk in, she started quietly crying. I sat down across from her, and almost immediately she started apologizing, over and over again. She said that when my father and Elle told her their story, she believed them because she never imagined something like this could actually happen. She said that when she saw me show up at the house that day, she was already furious and did not stop to question what she had been told. I told her that while I appreciated the apology, the things she said to me that day were incredibly hurtful. Some of the things she said were things no parent should ever say to their child. And hearing those words from her changed the way I looked at our relationship. She started crying even harder and insisted that she never meant what she said. She said that her anger completely took over in that moment. Instead of arguing about it further, I decided to move the conversation forward. I asked her what had happened with my father. She told me that the day after I sent her the video, she kicked him out of the house. They have been separated ever since, and she has already spoken to a lawyer. Then we talked about Elle. According to my mother, after I left the house that day and drove away, she went back inside and immediately threw both of them out. She said she was too disgusted to even look at them. We talked for about an hour in total. Before leaving, I told her something that I had been thinking about for a long time. I told her that when everything happened, I was at one of the darkest points of my life. And during that moment, I needed my mother. But because of what she said to me, she was not there when I needed her the most. And because of that, I do not know if our relationship can ever go back to the way it was before. However, I also told her that I am willing to try rebuilding our relationship. But it will happen at my pace, not anyone else's. Just as I was about to leave the diner, she stopped me. She said there was something important I needed to know. So I sat back down. Then she told me something that honestly left me speechless. Apparently, Elle showed up at my mother's house not long ago, and according to her, Elle is pregnant. She told my mom that she does not know whether the baby is mine or my father's. Elle apparently asked if my mother had heard from me so she could contact me and tell me herself. But since I have not spoken to either of them, my mother just sent her away. So that is where things stand right now. I have no idea what to think or what I'm supposed to feel about all of this. Right now, my head is full of questions that I do not have answers to. But I guess that is where the story ends for now. Thank you to everyone who has read these updates and supported me through this entire situation. I truly appreciate it more than you know. More drama is waiting. Check out one of these 2 videos next and subscribe so you don't miss the next upload.